Hey folks, welcome to F1 Rolling Start. Every week we take you under the helmet and over the top inside Formula One, the fastest sport in the world.
Yeah, we're two Americans who have come to love this sport. We love the drama. We love the races. We love everything about it. And most importantly, talking to each other.
We do.
Over and over again about F1. I am James.
I'm Ben.
We're going to get rolling straight into this podcast. Here's what we're going to discuss. We are going to talk about the U.S. race in Austin. We're going to walk through some paddock drama that's going on right now.
Absolutely.
And we're going to end on why F1. Why is it such a great sport?
Yeah.
But let's start with the race.
Absolutely. So COTA, otherwise known as Circuit of the Americas, it initially was the only American Grand Prix, the only F1 race in America. F1 has exploded here in the States.
Massive.
And so now there's two other races, Miami and Vegas. But this is the OG.
This is the OG. And it's one of the favorite tracks for our drivers.
Oh.
Like the drivers, you either love it or you hate it.
Yeah.
It's on the shifting sands of Texas. And so it is.
That's why it's such a,
It's nuts.
It's crazy. I was just listening to some, folk reflect on the race, and they're mentioning that in Texas, because of the movement of the earth under the track, the track has risen and fallen over the years.
In the last 5 years, the peak of the first corner has gone up 1.5 meters or something like that. Like,
unreal.
And the bumps that were in one place the previous year are now in a totally different place. It gets resurfaced all the time because the sands are shifting and all that kind of stuff. It's a used track. It's fast. It takes on a life of its own, but it has some of the craziest portions of like the greatest tracks on the F1 calendar, and it's all in one place. And I'll just say it was the most exciting race of the season, period.
It was, and here's why it was. It is no secret that Red Bull has run away with the season.
Yes.
And
it's no secret. It's fact.
It's
at
fact.
This point.
It's
They've
factual.
won both championships.
It's historic. It is unlike anything we've seen before, and
it may be unlike anything we ever see again.
Yeah, it's quite possible. So you're right. This was one of the most exciting races of the year because they didn't run away with it. It was a really tough race.
Less than 2 seconds.
The margin of victory was less than 2 seconds. So yeah, let's just dive into the race.
Well, who won?
Well, we'll start.
2023. Who won the Formula One race?
Who won? And
90% chance that Max Verstappen won.
It's
and
Max.
Max won.
It's
from
Max.
6th place, nonetheless.
Yeah, he didn't qualify great. He got one of his laps deleted.
Yep.
He ends in 6th place on the grid.
Hated the car the whole weekend.
Yeah, no, he was really vocal about that. He comes all the way back to 1st place. But here's the thing. It wasn't a simple race for him.
No, not at all.
Most races, he's, a Sunday drive
He's
through the
making
park.
jokes. He's like trying to toy around if he should come in and risk it because he's 30 seconds ahead to just get fresh tires for the heck of it.
Yeah, and there's always this really interesting dynamic he has with his engineer where he literally is
a GP, man.
Yeah, he's very casual with him. He was not casual.
No.
This race.
No.
There were several moments where it appeared he had a brake issue, something wrong with the car.
Confirmed. It was the brakes were done, the tires were not great, and because of that exacerbated both problems.
And not only that, but he has pressure.
Yes.
And
for pretty much the first time
this year. Really, I mean, last year he had some pressure initially from Ferrari, but he has pressure, and you see another type of Max. And everyone's always talked about Max as like the lion. And this year you haven't seen that because he's so relaxed.
Yeah.
And you start seeing that come out where he's cussing out his engineer, and he's like,
my gosh.
"Don't talk to me in the braking. What are you doing?" And
please, please,
and
in the braking.
I loved
Nevertheless,
I love seeing that because it's like, this is what we want.
Yes. So he was cracking under the pressure. Now he still drove incredibly, and he won the race at the end of the day. He got all the points.
It wasn't a given. The last 2 laps were stunning, and so Max finishes first. Checo finishes 4th.
Yes.
But yeah, it wasn't a simple race for Red Bull.
It wasn't a simple race, but it was a great result, and especially for Checo.
It was.
Because the guy needed to end higher than Hamilton. He didn't initially. Hamilton got disqualified, and we'll talk about that when we get to Mercedes. But Checo had a great weekend. He drove well. He got the points. He stays ahead of Hamilton in the drivers' championship.
Yeah, it's so critical for him at this point. Red Bull has never had a 1-2. They have never finished the drivers' championship with first and second place, and so it's essential that Checo delivers that for them. Even though they've locked constructors, even though they've locked the drivers' championship, it's critical. And he took a huge step ahead to stay ahead of Lewis this weekend.
Lando finishes P2. Piastri doesn't finish at all.
McLaren.
Yeah. They're like the kid at school that after the summer, like they go from being like the shortest to the tallest, and like all of a sudden they're like really good looking and super cool, but they were like 3 months ago. Like,
I had a summer like that. My family was off doing a big job for 4 months, and we came back, and I was like 6 inches taller.
Yeah.
People freaked out. Like McLaren, this is the thing that's incredible about McLaren and F1. They start the year the slowest car.
Trash.
Absolute trash. Where
disappointing, like concerning, like what happened?
Really,
like, these guys are going to lose all their sponsors.
Like
really this is terrible.
And they turn it around. And Lando's been on the podium the last 4 races.
Oh, they're in crazy form. If you would extrapolate their like post upgrade season, Red Bull would not have been able to secure the constructors championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Max would not have been able to secure the drivers championship because their car is insane right now.
Yeah, they're on a tear. They're ripping through. Oscar, as a rookie, has been on another level.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, for this weekend, obviously he didn't do well. He had a DNF. He got hit in the side, and it compromised the car. He had to close it out. But yeah, McLaren's been on another level.
Another level. They wanted double points this week. Both cars. They didn't get it. But they're in a battle for jumping up the constructors, and the team that they're in a battle with also didn't get double points.
Well, they jumped up this weekend. They surpassed Aston Martin. They're now in 4th place, and they've got their sights on 3rd place.
That's what I'm saying. Like we all knew that they were going to pass Aston Martin. Aston Martin, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, but they've got their eyes on Ferrari, and they needed double points this week, especially since Leclerc got disqualified. Had Piastri been up there in his current form, finishing somewhere around 5th, 6th, it would have been a massive amount of points for them.
Yeah,
it would have been incredible.
Yeah, but great result for Lando.
Yeah,
getting 2nd after the disqualification.
And then Carlos gets another podium 4 hours later after the actual podium celebratory.
Don't you love that about F1? How the stewards can reach back into time and space itself and say, no, you had your moment, you had your podium, doesn't count.
Yeah,
no points. You're disqualified. Like that doesn't happen in American sports. No. We're used to
the ref. How many people do you know? Like you're from Ohio, so
I'm from Ohio.
You
I'm from Cleveland,
where they go. Oh, we would have in 1984 if it had been for that one.
1962.
The game ends and it's over. The score is the score. We know who the winner. I've never been to a Lakers game and then a week later I find out that they didn't win.
Yeah, no, this is the unreal thing about F1 where
there's checks and balances.
There's really strict regulations,
weigh bridges,
and again,
and it's we're talking millimeters here. But Sainz gets P3. Ferrari gets a haul of points. Yep. Leclerc gets disqualified. Him and Hamilton get disqualified because essentially, long story short, the cars were riding too low.
Yeah, and ultimately there's continuity across all the teams with the bottom of their car, kind of that central beam.
Which is hilarious because we're talking billions and billions of dollar like sport, each team, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
The greatest engineers. And the piece of equipment we're talking about that was damaged is literally chipboard.
Yeah.
That is like wood board underneath the car.
It's meant to provide that continuity. It's a safety issue for
100%.
cars,
for the drivers, really.
For the drivers. And so the FIA takes it really seriously. And so, unfortunately for Hamilton, he gets disqualified.
Unfortunately for Hamilton, unfortunately for me, are you kidding me?
Well,
I finally have my team back up where they need to be. Blood is in the water.
Your team.
And they fail. I'm already dealing with Russell, who can't get his feet together on this track.
No, he can't. For the
life of him.
Well, this is the thing about Austin, too. It rewards the seasoned drivers, and it catches out those who aren't. 100%. So you saw that with Hamilton.
That's a great way to put it.
And you saw that with Russell. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing with Mercedes. There's a bit of exhaustion around their upgrade talk, right? So in the race, you see upgrades. We'll talk about that more later, but Hamilton is roaring.
Ripping, dude.
And we haven't seen that in I don't know, 2 years almost.
The level of racing that we saw from Max, Hamilton, not Leclerc, Norris, and these teams, even some of the back, like the middle of the pack, they were scrapping the whole time. Yeah. We haven't seen this level of racing, and we haven't seen this level of competition that's kept. We've seen it in behind Red Bull, but Red Bull's never been in it.
No.
And so when we had Max and Checo in the mix this weekend, I mean, you and I were watching this thing. We were on our feet on that last lap.
I was on my knees on the last lap.
I was jumping up and down. Do you remember when Bono came over and told Hamilton that he might be able to get P1?
Here's the thing. I was like, what are you doing? This is Hamilton. You're not going to pull the wool over his eyes. He knows he's not getting P1.
Until we got to the last lap and you were on your knees and you were like, what's happening here?
What is even going on?
Like 2021 level competition, best racing, funnest every race. You never know what's going to happen.
And that was what was missing. It was because, and this was what everyone was saying this year, Red Bull is so far ahead. They're the outlier.
Yes.
Everyone else in the back
100%.
is so much more competitive, but Red Bull has done so well. They've just leveled up and usually the talk is, well, if you take Max out of the equation, the rest of the field's really tight.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Max was in the equation.
And the field was freaking tight.
And that was what was really exciting.
Yeah.
Even as a Max fan, as stressful as it was at the end, I was still like, this is what I love about F1.
Yeah, because Max fans, you've been so stressed all season. So I'm so sorry you had to deal with stress.
You had 7 years.
7 years.
I'm not even
and
halfway.
And my 8th is coming.
I'm not even through half of that yet.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so
we've got 5th Russell, 4th Checo was in 4th, 5th Russell. Russell did a pretty average job this weekend. He self-admittedly he struggles at Austin.
Yeah,
because they underfueled his car.
And then he had to turn his engine down.
Yes, he lost 0.3 of a second every lap, which in F1 terms is an eternity.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
And he was still gaining on the medium towards the end, which I'm telling you, Mexico, I thought Mercedes sucked in Mexico for some reason. I think maybe some 2018 Drive to Survive.
Maybe.
Pseudo knowledge made me think that. But I looked back last year, we were good in Mexico. I'm like, yo, if they were that good with one practice session and minimal time to dial in this, now they have that practice session, they have sprint races, they have qualifying, they have sprint qualifying, they have an entire race of data to up and adjust their new setup. They're going to raise Hamilton's floor so he doesn't get disqualified again.
True.
And I think we could have a crazy fight.
Hamilton was 2nd in Mexico last year.
Exactly. I know.
And Russell was 4th.
I had some weird things going on. Okay, so 5th Russell, 6th place. 6th place. I don't know who was in 6th place.
Gasly was in 6th place.
Well, that kind of shapes up what we think of Alpine. I don't know who was in 6th place.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Alpine, and this is something that is really interesting right now. Gasly felt that he had a really complete weekend, and that's great. He pulled ahead of his teammate.
They're just in no man's land, man.
But yeah, they're in a really funky spot where they
have way more points than the people behind them,
and they're
way few points. For
way fewer. So they're stuck in 6th place. They're not going up. They're not going down, and I think it's almost representative of where they are as a team right now. They're leaderless.
100%.
They had a really strong leader. They had a really seasoned leader
with a great plan.
And the team was like, "Yeah, we don't like that. We want
not the team. The bureaucracy above the team. Renault is a major organization, and they run their team way different than everybody else. There's no horn dog Christian Horner.
No.
There's no Toto Wolff. No. There's no Andrea Seidel. There's no Zach Brown. There's no one figurehead that they can look to. It's technically this Bruno guy, and they are looking for somebody else, but it's management by consensus over there.
Yeah.
They have corporatized it, and they've got all these new investors. They did this super cheesy moment at the beginning of the race where one of the new investors came on and was like, "Hey, Ocon, I'm with you. I'm cheering you
I saw that
and
too.
I was like,
yeah.
dude, this is
like,
so not F1. This is so lame. One of the guys was getting interviewed, and he's like, "Yeah, it's really cool because like I invested, and there's a great network." And I'm like, "Bro, we're talking about racing here. Why are you treating this like some Silicon Valley investment network?"
Yeah. It's almost as if they've become. Well, they are too political. They are 100%. Too corporate. They are too collective to their own hurt. And so, I mean, Gasly does finish 6th. He felt like it was a good race.
Solid race. I love Gasly. I feel bad because he went to this team and it's kind of been like a blah season for them.
Yeah.
Ocon didn't even finish. Him and Piastri were caught up in a fight in the beginning. They had damage. They didn't finish. They moved on. It went there. And then another kind of team that's kind of started out hot and now not. Aston Martin. Stroll finished in 7th. Yeah. Alonso didn't even finish at all.
Yeah, so Aston Martin, one of those teams that had the reverse fortunes of McLaren.
They're Benjamin Button of
they're literally mirror opposite, where
they start out
amazing. Hot. They're at the top,
challenging Red Bull.
They've got podiums,
making everybody nervous, making Mercedes look like idiots because they're a customer team.
No, absolutely. And the thing with Aston Martin that was really fantastic was they started the year with nothing to lose, nothing to prove. And there was a freedom in how they were racing, and there was a passion that you can see in Alonso, and they were just going for it. And then
they ended last year.
They're absolute trash. And so
no one was expecting this.
No, and so when they come out of the gate, everyone's just hailing them, and now they have something to lose, something to prove, and their big, talking point as they started to kind of regress was, well, the other teams are starting to catch up, and I think it was just a pressure thing where they're having a hard time maintaining that.
Yeah,
expectation.
It's like they got desperate and started just kind of like, okay, like when you just start trying to pull levers and you're like, yeah, this will do it. But I got to be honest, Stroll started in the pit lane on Sunday.
He did.
And you and I are not Stroll fans.
No, we're not.
But he ended that race 7th. Now, granted,
it was 9th, and then he bumped.
It was 9th, and he bumped to 7th.
He was still in the points,
technically, 5 people got either disqualified or DNF'd. So
all those multiple clarifiers.
There's a lot of clarifiers, but I was not expecting that.
No.
And here's the interesting part to me is that his teammate Alonso, before his car broke down, essentially the rear suspension took a dump, was running one step ahead of him. So they're close.
Yeah, and they haven't been close this season.
Not at all.
And this
embarrassingly, Stroll has 1/3 of the amount, less than 1/3 of the amount of points. Now here's the thing. And what was it? Something like 5 or 6 races Stroll hadn't, or 9.
It was 9 points in the last 9 races.
9 races he didn't score a single point. So this is his first points in 9 races. And for all intensive purposes, up until this last weekend, they had the 4th best car on the grid.
Yeah. No, there's been a canyon between him and his teammate.
There's been the Grand Canyon.
And Stroll has not been grand. And so, there's been, rumors, there's been talks, but this week, he pulled it out and he ended 7th, which I think was significant for him, especially as we get towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
In F1, you have got to perform. It's based on merit.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Unless you're Lance Stroll and your dad buys the team.
Unless you're Lance Stroll. It's the qualifiers. There's so many qualifiers, right? For everyone else, it's based on merit.
Everyone else, it is.
But if your dad's a quadrillionaire,
yes, exactly. Then if your daddy puts you on Jeff Bezos' yacht, everything's fine. If you lock in the Amazon sponsorship because of your dad's connections.
Here's the thing with Lance, and then we'll move on. I desperately want Lance to prove me wrong.
I want him to watch.
I just want him to show up, to be hungry, and to just put a stake in the ground and say, listen, I'm here to stay. I'm not going anywhere. It's not my dad. It's me. I've got what it takes. And
no,
I don't see that.
No, that's my problem with him. And there's plenty of people. It has nothing to do with the fact that his dad is affluent. There's people on the grid who have pedigree in their history.
Absolutely.
Max Verstappen's dad was a Formula One driver.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso, his teammate, is a 2-time world champion. He gets out of the car this last weekend. He's ticked off, ripping his things off, talking in the media pen, and they're like, "What happened?" He's like, "I did the best I could with the car that I have. We shouldn't have done these upgrades here." His teammate Lance Stroll gets out of the car, relaxed as all get out, looks like he just smoked a bowl. He's like, "Yeah, I drove really hard. I felt pretty good, but I guess the time wasn't there." I'm like, dude, we're talking a 2-time world champion in his 40s is hungry to get a win.
Yeah.
You hop out after a mediocre season at best in what any other team you would have been dropped already.
Yeah.
And you say, I drove well. I just don't understand why we're not fast. Dude, it's your job to be fast. It's your job to not say the car felt well. It's your job to go, I took this car to the ragged edge.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't do that.
Well, and this is the thing too.
I'm ending my rant on that now.
Max, who has won, who doesn't need to show up. He can literally go to Monaco for the rest of the year and the team would save money.
He can use all of the $70 million he made this year.
He literally doesn't even have to show up.
He's done.
He could lose every race. He could just put it on cruise control. And the fire in that guy's belly is
going for it.
And you see that come through. And if he, who already has it in the bag, is that passionate, I would hope the other drivers who still have something to prove would show that kind of passion.
That's my thing. Everyone on that grid is not just stoked to be there. They're desperate to be there, and they're there to win. You got Hamilton, who is literally, arguably, statistically, the greatest driver in the history of Formula One.
Yeah.
And you've got...
Data doesn't lie.
There's one person that is in the history of Formula One that is tied with him, and that's Michael freaking Schumacher, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And he's already beat the race wins on Michael.
Yeah.
And so he is driven. He is still
and you saw that this weekend.
It's crazy to me. But anyway, Lance Stroll,
that's right.
Good job. 7th place.
7th place.
Congratulations to you. Williams, though. Albon gets...
Let's talk Williams.
Sargent gets his first points, which let's just give ourselves, as Americans, a round of applause. It's been 30 years since an American has scored points.
True. And
1993, my friend, was the last time. It was an Andretti that scored points.
Here's the thing. I'd love to be happy for Sarge. The Sarge. A, he's not done a great job this year.
No.
At all. B, he scored 4 hours after the race was over. He got pulled into the points by the refs. So that's
I get it. And look, you and I both know we don't want... I think I told somebody today, I was like, I'd rather Zach Brown driving a car as an American. Yeah. He's a great representation of us.
Much passion.
Freaking Sargent comes in here and he's our equivalent of Nicholas Latifi. You're just kind of like, dude, what are you doing here?
Confused.
And I'm just like, whatever. But he was right behind Albon. So that's the impressive part. He was right with Albon all weekend. He actually was driving well. He seemed to be driving in a mature way. And I'm a major fan of James Vowles and Albon and how they're building that team right now. I think they haven't brought an upgrade since August. Yeah. And they said in August, we're not going to bring any more upgrades for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And we've had teams that are bringing upgrades left, right, and center. And they're still not doing as well.
Yeah, they're still competitive.
They're just somehow making it happen, and I really respect them for that.
Yeah, and Williams also is just a great team. They've got such an incredible history in F1, and I feel like they're going to be one of those slow burns where it's going to take them a minute to get to the top.
Yep.
I think they're going to get there, and I'm really excited to start seeing them get closer and closer. So yeah, it was great to see them.
And then Danny Ricciardo's back.
Oh, Danny.
Austin, his favorite place to be, one of the biggest characters in all of F1, comes back, his first practice, crashes out his car, breaks his wrist, some metacarpal, something or other, ironically, because he was avoiding crashing into the guy that stole his seat at McLaren.
I know, unreal.
Comes back this weekend, and, well, he finished last. Technically 15th. But there were only 15 cars at the end of the race.
Yeah.
So
it's a tough thing for him to come back like that. I think, when you think about F1, these guys are so close.
Yeah.
So if you're not progressing, if you're standing still, you're moving backwards, right? So like he was out for 5 races.
It's huge.
And then
huge.
He had just come back after being out for the entire season. So I think it's one of these things where like he's still shaking off the rust. Yeah. He's still getting back. It's a new car.
And he admittedly was like, I felt the rust.
Yeah.
My thing is this though, you feel the rust, sure. He is an 8-time race winner.
He is. Yeah.
He's been he took a year off, but he's been in this, not even a full year. He's been in this racing for a while now.
Yeah.
And, he's not new to this. And then you have his reserve driver come in and push Yuki, who's been driving. Liam Lawson comes in. Bro, he beat Yuki.
Yeah.
Raced well. Everyone was super impressed.
Yeah.
And then you have an 8-time race winner come back and finish last. And so I'm kind of like, I get it. But, it's F1, man. It's the pinnacle. If you either you sink or you swim, it's one or the other. You had Yuki finishing in the 8th.
Yeah,
and I love Yuki's a great driver, but Danny Ricciardo, for all extensive purposes, everyone's saying like, "Oh, Checo better watch out. Checo better watch out," and then he comes back and he finishes dead last. Yeah. Checo's like, "I did 4th."
Yeah, it's one of these really interesting things because again, Yuki finishes 8th and gets fastest lap.
Pits on the last last lap to come in
and goes for it. And so I mean, I'm excited. Danny Ricciardo's back. F1 loves him.
Mm-hmm.
We love Danny, right? So really excited. He's a phenomenal presence in the sport. He just brings this incredible energy. So glad he's back. Hope he's here to stay.
Yeah.
Right? So again, you gotta drive up, you gotta perform, and that's at the end of the day what you have to do. And so
I think he'll stay because he brings a ton of money. And everyone loves him.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously they're going to give him the rest of the season into next. But it'll be interesting. I really hope by the end of this year he's at least at par with Yuki, if not pushing Yuki into a new realm.
Yeah.
He's a great driver. And then we kind of talk about the last 2 teams, and they're both kind of boring. And
it's unfortunate. It's hard. Which one do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with the one that we don't really have much to say about, which is Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think you sum it up. I love there's no passion. There's no passion. Yeah. An Italian team should have some passion, in my opinion.
My God, I'm Italian. You know how much passion's in my family? It's unreal. It's too much. And I'm watching these guys. I'm like, wait, what are you doing out there?
It's clinical. It's boring. It's whatever. They've got Bottas,
it's mediocre, really.
100%. You've got a driver like Valtteri, and
I do love Bottas.
I love Valtteri Bottas.
When he was with Mercedes, he was great.
He was great. He
helped
win 5 of their championships. He was a runner-up 2 times in the World Championship. The guy's got 67 podiums under his belt.
Yeah.
He's won, I think, like 12 races or something like that. The dude is, for all extensive purposes, he's better than Ricciardo.
Oh my God, yeah.
And so,
absolutely.
But where is he? Sometimes he doesn't even qualify. Then Zhou beats him, dude.
Yeah, no, like it's a difficult thing.
It's just kind of whatever the team seems, whatever. I don't even know their team principal's name. I don't know anything about him. I get commercials on my Instagram, but that's about it. Like, And
I'm not inclined to.
No, I'm not going to seek anything out.
They're a difficult team. I think at the end of the day, love for them to get some points.
Yeah.
Love for them to get some passion.
Yeah. I just want to like, I don't even think about them.
No.
Like, I think there's only 10 teams. So, I mean,
I only have so much bandwidth.
But
someone's going to drop off.
I only have so much bandwidth. There's only 10 teams. Like, you got to at least give me something. Like last season, they gave me something. When they had Charles Leclerc, they gave me something. When they had Freddie Vasseur as the team principal, I was into it. I was curious. Yeah. I got nothing right now. And then last, but certainly not least, unfortunately, is the American team, which is Haas. Gene Haas, which is a NASCAR legend and race winner and has a team still.
Yeah.
He has a Formula One team that
has been the bottom feeders.
Has been literal, like, catfish, carp.
The last 5 years, they've been 9th, 10th,
trash.
8th, 9th, 10th.
Yeah. They're back. And every year it's this whole, like, we're the scrappy team, we're the this, we're the that. Oh, it's because I had my, Russian oligarchy driver and he was new. And then, I had rookies. And then
we were sponsored by Russian fertilizer companies. Exactly. And then the war in Russia happened and your war in Ukraine happened.
And so,
I love Gunther when that happened. He's like, what is going on?
They had some dude go in and sponsor them with like a Red Bull rival energy drink that no one had heard of that just ended up didn't paying for his sponsor. Like, all of it is just this. It all ends up with them going nowhere. This weekend, they came with, I wrote this down. They had new bodywork, which included a brand new floor, new side pods, new cooling louvers, new front brake ducts, a new engine cover, and a new Coke bottle area around the back of the car. Essentially, they redid their entire car because the wing and the rear wing had been replaced previously in the season. And they finished 11th and 14th. They have the exact same issue that they had previous, which is they can qualify well, they can do one lap well, but when it comes to the race on Sunday where the points matter and are earned, they are nowhere. They chew their tires up.
Yeah, and they just don't have the race pace. I love an underdog. I love a scrappy team.
I want them to win.
I know. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh,
you know how many under freaking dog teams I've had to live with my entire life? Like, I'm from there.
Have to, don't you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not living there anymore. But there's an inclination I have towards that kind of fighting spirit where it's David versus Goliath. And Gunther, he brings that where he's like, listen, like, that's who we are. Here's my thing, though. At some point, you have to progress.
Yes, if you're using David and Goliath, you got to pick up the sling and
you have to
be
slay
a giant.
You have to actually be Goliath, right? Like, you can that's the only way it works. So I think with Haas, for me, I love their spirit and their energy, but again, they've just persistently been at the bottom, at the back. Way behind.
My thing is, like, how long do you do that? How long do you keep doing that until you're like,
how long?
Because what happens when Andretti and Cadillac come in, and then all of a sudden they can prove that you can come in and you can be a top team in one season?
Yeah,
someone will buy Haas because the teams are exclusive and expensive.
Yeah,
but there's got to be a point where investors are going to be like, we can't do. We're talking about teams like Mercedes and Red Bull and Aston Martin, who are sponsored by, well, number one, Mercedes and Aston Martin are exclusive brands. You've got Aramco, You've got these billion-dollar oil tycoons. You've got Rolex, all these things. And then you've got Haas, which is sponsored by MoneyGram and Chipotle. MoneyGram is literally a payday thing that is designed to keep people in debt. I know.
It's unreal, dude.
It's terrible.
It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
And so I'm like, I just want them to win. But I'm like, dude, if MoneyGram pulls out, who's going to sponsor them?
Yeah.
Like,
I think
into cash?
I don't even know. I mean, again, highlight for Haas last season was Magnussen on pole.
Yeah, by
in
a
Brazil by a fluke, and that was an incredible moment. I'd love to see more of those, but
awesome.
We're just not.
Those are those
right
underdog moments that we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't get to.
Absolutely.
It was a killer race. I mean,
it was fantastic.
I'm so expectant for this week when we watch Mexico. I want to be on my feet again. I want to be running laps and yelling, and I want to be, I want that level of thrill and excitement that we experienced because it was a killer. And I can't wait. We got to go to Austin next year because it was an incredible race.
It really was. It was great to see F1 being back. And I mean that as far as just the competition, the fire, the passion.
2023, oh my gosh, it's going to be incredible.
Unreal.
Well, let's talk about some stuff that's going on behind the scenes. We love the race, but we also love to get under the helmet. And there's a couple things that are going on right now that are worth talking about. First and foremost is the fact that the British are coming.
They are. This is something that we haven't seen. We've seen previews, we've seen, glimpses. There's been talk. Last year, Mercedes won in Brazil.
Yep.
The one race they won, Russell, right? I mean, they did. It was one race. They didn't win the rest of the season. They haven't won at all this season.
Whatever. Just rub it in.
I'm just saying they've been nowhere. And Toto is like, for so much of last year and even this year,
the car is terrible. Don't know Hamilton. Just drive.
Lost in the wilderness. Just, we've got to figure this out. I don't know where we're at. And so
we've made fundamental mistakes.
So for them to come back the way they did was such a big deal. And I want to put this in perspective real quick. So Max ran away with the season, but it's really important to know how far ahead he was in some of these races, right? To put it in context. In Monaco, he was ahead by 27 seconds when he won. Spain by 24 seconds. Hungary by 33. Belgium by 22. Japan by 19. In Austin, he won by 2.2 seconds.
Yeah.
Again, a second is
and
like
let's be real. He won
by
2.2 seconds only because a back marker got in Hamilton's way.
Yeah.
Like if we had been,
it would have been under a second.
Mercedes hadn't messed up and held Hamilton out for an extra 4 or 5 laps on those tires in the
strategy
beginning,
mistake, as Max would say. You could have won. Just the strategy was bad.
My favorite is when Max goes, nevertheless.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You lost.
Exactly. Whatever, Max. Shut up. And Hamilton would have been there, dude. Like, because when he got on those medium tires and he had low fuel, he was flying. And Red Bull was on hard tires, and admittedly, nowhere. They didn't have the pace.
Yeah, they were
calling the delta out to Max over and over again, and that's when he was starting to freak out. Like, don't talk to me.
Yep. It was an incredible thing to see. First off, Lewis was fast in qualifying.
Lewis was fast all weekend. And then again, at the end, he's chasing. And there was a point where his engineer tells him, hey, we think we're going for P2 and maybe the race win. And at that point, that's when I stood up.
But that's when also I was like, are you serious? Like, this guy's not going for the race win.
Yeah.
But then again, Mercedes brought upgrades and they worked.
They worked with limited testing. So I'm like, other teams. I'm trying not to get excited because I am a Mercedes fan, and for the last 2 years, I have been hearing we have upgrades. Right? It's been really hard for me.
The last 7 years were great for you, so I don't feel bad at all.
We dominate 8. And so I'm like looking at it going like, okay, yeah, we're bringing an upgrade package to Austin. Well, the last like 2,700 that we've brought since 2022 have been trash, i.e. 0 side pods.
Yeah.
Can anyone say how devastating that was? I remember how excited I got when I saw it on the track.
Russell was like, the car looks fast.
Car looks really fast. Oh my God. There's an incredible meme where it's that scene from Drive to Survive where he's like, man, that looks really fast. And then it cuts to Checo and Max gutturally laughing and bursting out. And so I came into Austin, I was skeptical. I was like, Max is going to take this. He's going to be 10, 15 seconds ahead. We might gain, a tenth of a second a lap, and they'll come on at the end and they'll be like, we're heading in the right direction. No, it was a real upgrade. And McLaren, it's not just Lewis.
No.
Lando. Yeah. There had been a couple of doubts because Oscar was on point.
Yeah.
But Lando reestablished himself as the front runner of McLaren this week. He led the race for the first third of it. Like he was on fire, and he was pulling a crazy lead out on Leclerc. And it was incredible to watch. The British are coming, my friend. There is blood in the water.
The British,
and we are going to take down that energy drink team.
Which team do you mean? The one that's dominated this season?
Get over it. It was
that team. I don't care if who you're sponsored by. If you're winning, that's all that matters. That's all that matters.
I'm just saying
the British are coming.
Horn Dogs' days are numbered. Max's smugness will be taken out.
We'll see.
Hamilton is coming back with his false humility, and he will take over the whole world.
We'll see.
As long as Checo stays his teammate in 2023, that's better for me, just to put that out there.
Well, this is really interesting. The British are coming. However, when Mercedes becomes more competitive, you will have 2 drivers who are both competitive, who are both close to each other.
Hence why it's good if Checo stays with the Red Bull.
But in the Drivers' Championship, it will be difficult because they will be stealing points from each other. Whereas if Checo stays with Max,
so we'll end up with
no one's stealing points from Max. Here's the thing, Red Bull, they stopped developing this car.
Oh my gosh,
they stopped developing it. Who knows how long ago? Because they're like, what? We locked this up. So yes, the other teams are chasing them. Yes, the British are coming. I don't want to underscore that. But they're chasing a car that isn't being developed anymore.
Exactly.
So they're developing, and they're closer. Mm-hmm. They're still not there.
No.
And Red Bull's like, oh, we're already in next season. I'm already in Monaco. Like I'm right. So
you know, like
I'm already on my yacht.
You really like Monaco. What do you have against Monaco? You referenced it like 5 times.
I'm just saying, Max is already at home in Monaco. He's not in the race car.
I've never been to Monaco.
He's not, trying. He's just like, I'm already there. Like, but the British are coming. They're getting a lot closer. It's exciting to see.
The thing for me is that Red Bull, Christian, Red Bull, Max, the radio messages, all of it. It's no longer this sense of Christian going, hey, we enter in every weekend and we don't know what we're going to expect. But you're looking at him and he clearly expects to win. When he went into the Austin GP, he was like, we really don't know what to expect from Aston Martin. McLaren. We really don't know what to expect from Mercedes.
And I think he was honest, actually.
Exactly. That's
he was
what I'm
being
saying.
political earlier, and 100%. We all knew he was being political.
We knew
but
he was
being
placating
honest.
earlier because he was nervous that they were going to come in regulations and destroy his team, which I'm glad they didn't. And
I'm glad they didn't either.
But now he's like, nah, this is actually making him nervous, which I asked myself, why would you be nervous for the rest of this season? You're not. The season is done for you.
The season's done.
Everything from here is hubris.
Yeah.
You are nervous for next season. Because
that might be reading into it a little bit, but
no, think about Red Bull. They're trying to build an
Adrian
engine.
Huey, who designed
22
a
championships under his
freaking
belt.
rocket ship of a car, a historic car. Some are calling the best designed car in Formula One history.
Almost all the best designs are his.
Yeah. So he ain't going anywhere. He's still here next year.
Don't burst my bubble.
I'm just saying.
I mean, no. I'm telling you, Christian's nervous.
Sure. I'll give you that.
Every team principal would, because he's looking at the strides that he knows that had Zach actually made the decision to upgrade McLaren 6 months before he would.
It would still be a fight.
We would still be talking about championship points here.
Yeah. I think here's an idea for why maybe he's nervous. He's looking at the other team pairings, and something he mentioned a few races ago was that racers need to be close together. He's looking at Mercedes; those guys are close. He's looking at McLaren; those guys are close. He's looking at Ferrari; those guys are close.
Very close.
He's looking at his team.
He's looking at
his
Haas.
racers.
Oh no, he's not looking.
He's not looking at Haas. He's not looking at Alfa Romeo. He's not looking at those guys. But he's looking at his team, and his drivers are not close.
Yeah, he's got an Alonso Stroll situation on his hands.
He does. Even if Checo's second,
he's got 50.
He has half the points.
Half the amount of points.
Yeah. So I think what he's nervous about is saying, okay, hang on a second.
If they do,
I
have my driver pairing.
I have 1 foot that I'm racing with.
Yes.
I've got Max.
I got a hand tied behind my back.
I can't depend on Checo. And these other guys as drivers are way more competitive than my team is. That's why I think he's nervous.
Yeah. Which leads us to what else is going on in the paddock.
Checo.
Which is there is so many rumors flying about Checo. So Checo is the second driver for Red Bull.
Yes. And he's a race winner.
Oh, yes.
With multiple
Checo's
teams.
Amazing.
He's great.
I love Checo. Nothing against him.
Absolutely.
I think he's a phenomenal driver. He's fast. He's quick. He's second in the championship. He was It's not
like he's 10th.
No.
He's second.
No, he's second. Last year he did really well. The year before, with the Max Hamilton pinnacle of F1 ever, in my opinion, he we'll leave it there. And
no, Michael, no,
Mikey, no. Come on. Anyway, so we're talking about, like, he held off Lewis Hamilton on a charge in the literal race for the world championship. He held him off.
I mean,
he was dubbed the Mexican Minister of Defense. It's not
unreal.
about. He's good enough driver to hold up 7-time world champion.
Yeah.
So he is not some dude that fell into this chair. He's a reputable driver, but he has the second best car on the field. He has the second best seat on the field in comparison to Max.
Yes.
He has the best car on the field.
Yes.
And he is making that car look like it is a Haas. It is an Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, especially when you think about where he has been as far as race finishes this year. So just looking back at this year, there's several races where he either got a single point, he got no points. You know, he finishes way back in the field, 8th place, 6th place. I mean, this is the curse of the second Red Bull seat.
Yes.
There is a curse.
It is. 100%.
There have been multiple.
Since Danny Ricciardo left.
There have been multiple drivers who have come through. There's been Ricciardo who left before the fight began. Albon came through. Gasly came through. Now we're with Checo. You know who's the one guy who hasn't went anywhere during that time? It's Max.
Exactly.
Max has kept that first seat. He is
intimidating. He is formidable. And as much as it pains me to say, rightfully so.
Rightfully so. He has locked that seat. And he is the leader of that team. And there are 2 drivers in every team. The team will develop the car based on whoever their lead driver is. And so Max has always been the one who has gotten the car that he wants.
Yep.
Because he has the results
at the
to prove
beginning
it.
of the season, Checo was pushing Max. Max hated the car.
Checo at one point had more race wins. He had the 2 race wins and a sprint, and Max only had 2 race wins.
Exactly. Max loves a car which has front end grip, no understeer.
Yep.
Checo loves a car that gives a little slide in the front. And they literally changed the car. And since then, Checo has been on a downward trajectory. Yeah. He's admitted he can't do it. He's got a flipping performance coach now. Yeah. Like, the dude's got a sports psychiatrist. Like, it's an intense amount of pressure. Yeah. And Red Bull does not let up.
No.
They turn it up.
Yeah. Yeah, that I mean, but you expect that at the top because that's how you stay at the top. And and Mercedes was ruthless during their reign.
They only ever gave Bottas a 1-year contract. They essentially said, prove yourself every year.
Again, Lewis had locked down that first seat. And so that second seat is like, So I think with Checo, these are the rumors that are going around. And they're not random rumors from like the dark web. These are from some of the most prominent
sources close.
Some of the most prominent voices in the sport. And some of the things that are coming out is that if Checo does not lock P2 in the Drivers' Championship, which Red Bull has never done, they've never locked P1, P2 in the championship, then they feel Checo will be pressured to retire. Or there's another rumor that or there's another rumor that Checo goes to another team, like an Aston Martin.
Okay, that would be fire. Let's fire Stroll.
That. Let's get Alonso and Checo together.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's my prediction on the whole thing.
Okay, what's your prediction?
This is the surface, right? Danny comes in, and everyone's like, okay, Danny comes in when Checo's not doing well. He replaces Nick DeVries. It's a classic Red Bull savagery. And now we've got Danny, we've got Yuki. Yuki's not getting a Red Bull seat. Yuki's
never
not getting a Red Bull seat.
He still has to prove that he can keep the seat he has.
Exactly. And so we don't have to worry about him.
No.
So we're looking at Max, who's not losing a Red Bull seat. So
the only way
you're looking
Max
at
is gonna,
now, Max is not losing a Red Bull seat.
He's going to die in that Red Bull seat.
100%. And so now you're looking at Danny Rick and Checo. And the thing about AlphaTauri and Red Bull is that those drivers are all interchangeable. It's in their contract.
They're all part of the same team, essentially.
They're all able to become a driver or a reserve driver or all of that.
Yep.
So we've got Checo who's underperforming. And if we go into next year and he doesn't have P2, I bet all of the money in my pocket, which is $22, that halfway through the season, 1/3 of the way through the season, they'll go and they'll pull a Nick DeVries and they'll go, Ricardo, you're in.
Yeah.
Or Lawson, you're in.
Yeah.
If Ricardo's not performing.
Yeah.
Checo, you're driving for Yuki or you're driving for Ricardo.
Yeah.
And the other, whoever's left over will be the reserve driver. That's what I think will happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And I think also that's why Horndog is nervous. Because he's looking, is a Liam Lawson as good as any of the Mercedes or
not for a
McLaren
season.
drivers? Is Ricardo as good as any of the McLaren or Mercedes drivers right now?
He might have been had he had all these races.
Maybe.
He just missed 4.
Right? So like, but he wouldn't be at that level right now. Even when he was still racing.
I think he could commit. He would be able to at least compete with Russell.
Potentially. But here's the thing. Ricardo was on the decline, which is why he lost his seat. Right? He had lost that spark. He wasn't performing
Ricardo's
well.
On the decline.
He had bounced a bunch of teams. But here's the thing. The McLaren drivers are tight. The Mercedes drivers are tight. The Ferrari drivers, their car, if it was better, they'd be solid. Sainz is the only other.
Even if they're not solid, they're still close together.
Yeah, they're close together. So Horner's looking at the landscape and saying, okay, if I put a Lawson, if I elevate a Lawson, is he going to give me points? That's a risk. If I elevate a Ricardo, is he going to be ready? He fled from Max before. Is he ready mentally?
I don't know.
Right. So anyway, I think Checo. It's complex, but
I think it bums me out, man, because I really like Checo. He's a race winner. I think he's in a mental funk, which I feel for. But at the end of the day, this is F1, and so if you can't handle it, then you've got to go somewhere. I think if he did go, like him and Alonso together, would be formidable. He's raced with that team before when it was Force India. Mm-hmm. He crushed it there. Yeah. He did incredible work.
He came from last place to win a race, and that's what landed him the Red Bull seat.
Exactly. And so getting back into a team like that, get him out from underneath the shadow of Max, put him somewhere where he can fight. I think it would be good. Teams will take him. The guy has like one of the top 5 richest people in Mexico is like took him under his wing and helped like bring him into the place where he is. He has a ton of sponsorship that comes with him. And it's about driver, but it's also about, these teams are not cheap to run. And he brings great sponsorships, he sells more merchandise sometimes than Max does.
Yeah.
Like he's so well loved. There'd be a revolt.
He's loved
Across all of the way that, what's his name call it?
I know. The consultant for Red Bull. I can't remember his name. Yeah. Central America.
Marco.
Central America.
Helmut Marco called it Central America. No, he didn't call it Central America, he called it South America.
South America.
Yeah, you got to skip North America, which is where Mexico is. You got to go through South and then get to there.
So I mean, Checo. The thing I love about Checo is there's something about him. He still has the fire. He still has the passion.
Yes,
he's in a funk, but he works his butt off.
100%.
And in Austin, the fan base for him was phenomenal. I'm so excited for Mexico. I'm so excited for him to show up. I want him to show up and show out.
There were people booing Max on the platform in Austin.
Yeah, because there's such a Checo
fans. Like it's intense. The people have spoken. But at the end of the day, it's a meritocracy. But let's jump from paddock drama into YF1.
Yeah. So I'm going to call this section the philosophical underpinnings of why F1 is the best sport in the world. That's a mouthful.
The philosophical underpinnings.
Let me explain. There are so many things that have come to light over the years as I've really become an F1 fan. And one of the things that I think makes this sport so distinct, so unique, and so really like compelling is this concept of this war of milliseconds.
Yeah.
In other professional sports, you have obviously players who are at a similar level, similar skill, those types of things. But there is nothing like F1. The difference between greatness at P1, which is first place, and literally the gutter, which is P20, oftentimes is like this canyon of inches. It's like in qualifying, oftentimes the difference will be a second.
Yes.
That is a second.
This year specifically, there have been moments in qualifying which sets the starting positions for the race, which are super important. We're talking 0.06 of a second is the difference between 5 or 6 cars. We're talking one race, 12 cars within a second of each other.
It boggles the mind, but what it does is F1 is about the pursuit of perfection.
Yes.
The pursuit of these teams sometimes are thousands of people. Every person has an incredible role to play. Every person is contributing to that 10th of 100%. A second or 0.3 or a second. And so the thing about this sport that I just have come to love is this idea that the gap between the best and the worst is the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And that you don't see that in any other sport.
Yeah.
Right. And so
the machinery they get, the quality, the amount of money that comes into this, we don't realize the innovation that has come out of this sport.
No,
like we have cars that we have today because of this sport. We have technology that we have today because of this sport.
Yeah.
Because of the intensity of the competition, it forces them to innovate.
Yeah.
It's incredible to think through the fact that in this sport, we have 20 drivers, 10 teams.
Yeah.
This is not for the entire world.
Yes.
The entire world.
Yes.
I'm not talking about a World Series like America, where you've got America in the World Series. We're talking literally every continent,
Yes.
Every country, every group of people.
There's
10 teams and there's 20 drivers.
Yeah, and
everyone is working towards it. Everyone knows NASCAR. Everyone knows IndyCar. Everyone knows Formula E, whatever, all of it. Formula 2, the Porsche Cup, whatever. If you talk to any one of those drivers and you say, where would you be driving right now if you could drive anywhere? They would say Formula One.
Yes.
Why? Because it is the pinnacle. It is the ultimate. It is the Olympics every single friggin' year.
It is. And this is the thing that's incredible about it too. You talk about innovation, right? The Major League Baseball league hasn't innovated in decades. This last year when they decided to start doing things different, it was this massive controversy. We're going to add a pitch clock. What? Like, again, I love baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan. But football, soccer, basketball, these sports aren't innovating in the same way that F1. F1 is pushing because there's such a closeness between these teams. Yeah. And the stakes are so high. I mean, for example, 20 drivers in the entire sport.
The entire world.
In the entire world. And the NFL, every team has a 53-man roster. Team. They literally have special teams where they just say, hey, run out there and hit somebody. Like, you don't have to be skilled.
53 people.
53 people.
One, two. Two players.
Two players. Major League Baseball, 28 players on a roster. NBA, 15 players. Like, you can afford to have a few guys on your team that aren't real great when you've got that many. When you only have two, guess what? They have to be the best.
Best.
Period.
Best in the world.
So it's this chasing perfection that I think, it raises the stakes so high. The fortunes of an entire team, again, hundreds, thousands of people, rest on the shoulders of two drivers. Yeah. Oftentimes, they're kids.
Dude.
They're 18, 19, 20 years old.
Piastri is the youngest driver on the field. The guy is not even 20.
That kind of pressure. And when you see guys rise to the occasion, like Piastri, you're mind boggled. And when you see folks crumble under the pressure, it's like this experiment of like how the human psyche and the soul and the mind
takes an intense amount of mental capacity.
It's unreal.
It's incredible to me. And like, make no mistake, these are athletes that have been honed since a young age. They start driving go-karts at 4 or 5 years old. They're racing Formula 2 cars doing 150 miles an hour at 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah.
And
it's a lifelong pursuit for these guys.
Their entire life. Red Bull has a boarding school for their drivers. Like, it's not something that is flippant for these people. It is like,
no.
You talk about Hamilton, his dad, they would sleep on couches so that they could afford go-karts for him to drive. Like, Ocon's parents were like literally like driving and sleeping in their car, like trying to figure out ways to have these. It's not cheap. No. It takes a long time, and there is an enormous amount of risk attached to it. People lose their lives racing in this. It is every year there's a fatal accident in one of these areas where someone is trying to reach the pinnacle of motorsports. And when they get there, it is insane.
And
it's worth it.
I mean, I think of Danny Ricciardo or Checo.
Mm-hmm.
They left their homes and their families in Australia and in Mexico to go to Europe when they were kids.
Yes.
To live there.
As a dad, I don't even know how I wouldn't even let my son do that.
I have no. So again, like
the sacrifice is huge.
The sacrifice is huge, and when you see these guys get P1, get a pole position, win a sprint race, it's such a big deal because they're so close to each other.
And this is like, we always complain when we have to wait like 2 weeks for a race. And
we do,
of course, because we hate it.
We're Americans. We can't wait that long.
No, absolutely not. I mean, MLB is an example. There's like 700 games a day.
I know, right?
And, but like, there's 24 races next year.
Yeah.
That's 24 Sundays.
Yeah.
There's 52 in a year.
Mm-hmm.
So more than half the year, or right around half the year, they're in races. But it's not just Sundays, the race.
Yeah.
Saturday is qualifying or a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
Friday is practice.
Yeah.
Thursday is media.
Yeah.
So really it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then you might get home by Sunday night. But most likely, if you're in Abu Dhabi, you're not getting home.
No.
Or if the next week you're in Sao Paulo, you're not getting home.
No.
So really, you're home maybe sometime on Monday, and then you're flying out Wednesday for the next week.
Yeah.
Like when you think about these people's, like they get paid $56,000. I don't 56,000 million. Like
some of these drivers aren't making that much money though.
No, some of them aren't, but that's okay because they don't have any time to spend it. Like
No,
they
true.
don't. I don't understand. I don't think I could do that kind of schedule. Like you're home maybe 1.5 days a week. Like that's crazy, but they do it.
I mean, these guys are missing their kids' birthdays. They're missing like Horn Dog missed his daughter's birth, and then missed that same daughter's birthday.
Toto just got a knee reconstruction and literally was in like a wheelchair in front of a computer with headphones on and fully dialed in on the race weekend. Like, they live and they breathe it. The teams are with them. They're having to bring in substitute teams for it too, but the drivers don't get any of that. It's the pinnacle. It is incredible to watch.
It's absolutely fascinating. And this is why F1 is so compelling. There isn't a sport where the margins are that close.
No.
Period. There just isn't. And I think it's something too where like, you watch it as a viewer and you watch it as a human being and the way that these folks push themselves.
Yeah.
You can't help but say, do I have some more in me?
Right, exactly. It's inspiring.
Can I go a little bit further? Is there something more that I can do? Can I actually like seek to be better?
You're looking at Carlos Sainz and he's like, I'm preparing for the Singapore Grand Prix and it's going to be 90% humidity. So I put my bicycle in a sauna and turned it up to 120 degrees humidity and I did 8 miles. And you're like, can the human even do that? Like,
and he won.
Right. And so you're like, Unreal. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. They push themselves. I love the way that I think we were talking once and you had said, like F1's a jungle.
It is.
And only the ruthless will survive.
It's the cunning, it's the ruthless, it's the people who are willing to sacrifice everything for the pursuit of perfection, which makes it that much more meaningful when they get it.
Exactly.
So that it puts into perspective Lewis and his dominance. It puts in perspective what Max has been doing.
Yep.
It puts in perspective Oscar coming in as a rookie and just going on this incredible tear and just blowing away expectations, but staying so cool.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's why F1, right? It's just this incredible sport. And it captures the imagination.
It does.
It really does.
Man, I'm so excited for Mexico this weekend. I can't wait to debrief it, talk through the race when Mercedes wins and we see Max.
Here's the thing.
Fall.
As much as I love to hate Mercedes, you know what I would love to do more? I'd love to see them be competitive.
Okay. That's not a compliment, man.
Wasn't meant to be.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, so okay. What are we looking forward to? What are we looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to Hamilton winning.
Okay.
Lando coming in third. And Max coming in second.
Max would be so furious.
I'm looking forward to Hamilton on the podium in first place for the first time in 2 years. That's what I'm looking for.
In my notes, I have what I'm looking forward to, or what I think is going to happen, is Mercedes charging ?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious.
I'm hoping your question mark is removed for this.
I'm curious. I'd love to see Mercedes.
My fear about Mexico is that Max wins by 15 seconds. I don't think that's going to happen the way that McLaren is and the way that Hamilton's looking, but I don't know. That's me. I think here's my prediction. I'll give you my top three.
Give me top three.
I'm giving Hamilton, Max, Lando. What are yours?
Sergio's got to prove something.
Okay. That's not a prediction. That's
people.
A hope.
Here's the thing. I'm going to go Max, Sergio,
Wow, Red Bull 1 and 2.
I am.
Do you
Because
think Sergio's ready?
if there is a race,
Oh wait, did you say Hamilton in third?
yeah, third. I give him third.
Wow.
But then, yeah, I mean, I think Checo's got to deliver. It's his home. He's under pressure. I think he races lights out.
Amazing. Well, one of us will be completely right, one of us will be completely wrong, or both of us will be completely wrong. We'll find out next week when we continue Rolling Start. Thanks for joining us this week. Hey, the show notes are below. Check those out. Make sure you sign up to hear all the stuff that's coming out of this podcast. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
See you, folks.